and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit of the WoW podcast, Blue Please on CynicalBrit.com. Oh, wow. Never has there ever been a day where beta is a more apt term. Everything has been totally broken. Try this, 20 disconnects from various group members in under half an hour while trying to film Heroic Throne of Tides. It's not happening. You can't do anything right now. This is the only good footage I managed to grab the entire day. I just happened to fly over and I heard that Ahn'Qiraj is now a zone of its own. I was like, right, okay, so that must mean it's not a no-fly zone anymore like it used to be. So let's go and check it out. Just for the sake of looking at Ahn'Qiraj from a totally different perspective. Now, some of you may be concerned that Ahn'Qiraj is turning into something like, say, Zul'Gurub, which is now a questing area as opposed to an instance. That is not the case. Both instance portals, as you will see, are still there. You can just now fly over the area in general. Obviously, that means you'll be able to see all of Ahn'Qiraj 20 and the outside bits of AQ 40, which consists of the throne area where the Prophet Skerem was chilling out, and the entrance to the larger temple area. Bear in mind, of course, if you've never done AQ 40 before, which might be a considerable portion of my viewer base, sadly, then almost all of AQ 40 is underground. Only the first boss is done outside, and then you go into the temple, which you can see right here, and that's where Cthulhu is. You keep going down and down and down, and the evil, nasty, awful Cthulhu room is preceded by some of the most hellish and unbelievably difficult trash you would ever have the misfortune to come across. So much so, in fact, that a certain guild decided that it would be good to exploit their way through it by using the WoW equivalent of a wall hack. Except they couldn't just see through the wall. They could walk through the wall. Not so great. That got them banned. But that is the extremes people were willing to go to in order to avoid Cthulhu trash. And it keeps its position as something of a legend in WoW raiding lore. We're flying over parts of AQ 20 right here. That was Burrow's old place, and they are supposed to be making AQ 20 into a 10-man. That does not mean they are tuning it for level 85. They are just tuning it down so that you can get a 10-man group to go get the achievement, which seems to me to be a complete waste of time. I don't approve of them remaking it either, I might add. But at least if they're going to make it a 10-man, why not just bump up the level of the loot and things like that? I don't know, I wonder how long that actually takes. I mean, a lot of it to me just seems like spreadsheet entries, but I'm not a programmer, so I couldn't really tell you. Perhaps if you are a programmer, you could leave me a comment below and tell me whether or not I'm being an idiot on that regard. Now, it's nice to be able to see stuff like this, because this is not a perspective you were able to get before. Obviously, flying mounts didn't exist in the old world, and there are no flight paths directly over Ahn'Qiraj. Ahn'Qiraj is actually a very remote area. It's only just really being connected to anything now. As you can see, it is by the ocean. It borders on Silithus, and it also borders on Uldum now. Previously, it only bordered on Silithus, and that was the only way to even have a look at it. I like Ahn'Qiraj, though. Not only because I've got some great memories of it, because it was two fantastically well done instances, but the actual architecture is not really seen elsewhere in the world, and the lore of the Qiraji, who were actually force-fed during the preceding events. There was a whole big build-up to Ahn'Qiraj, and the fact that it was the biggest instance they'd ever done, and they were releasing two at once, and it was a huge deal, and you had to unlock it and everything like that. So we got force-fed a lot of lore on this, and the Qiraji lore is actually kind of neat. Might be worth looking up. I'd suggest you head over to WoW Wiki to have a little bit of a read of it. I do wonder if we're going to get any more of it, because apparently the Qiraji are, or were, somewhat involved in Uldum. Shouldn't surprise it to know that you can't really get in there. That is the entrance to the actual temple itself, where you would find Battle Guards, Sartura, and all of the other stuff. We've flown over empty instances before. We flew over the lost city of the Tol'vir recently. Earlier in the beta, we flew over Zul'Gurub, and we've also done a little bit of flying over Zul'Farrak as well, although that actually does dismount you in places, so you do want to be a little bit careful. But the ability to fly over open-air dungeons is neat, but it is a little bit disconcerting, because it doesn't show you anything. It shows you the layout, but there's nothing there. And, I don't know, that actually does, for me, have some immersion-breaking qualities. It's not major, by any stretch, but it always reminds me, the concept of instances is so weird, isn't it? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's a very gamey concept. I mean, I could spend an entire video talking about gamey concepts. For instance, if we were to look at the Lisa Nova video I did for the StarCraft 2 stuff, a lot of people said a lot of very dumb things on that, but one comment I will make, and I don't really want to go into it too much right now, is that gamey concepts to non-gamers are alien. Stuff that we take for granted and we can just accept, non-gamers can't, because actually, if you applied that to any other scenario, it just wouldn't make any sense. At all. They don't understand game design philosophy, they don't understand game mechanics in the way that we do, and they shouldn't be expected to either, because again, a lot of those mechanics and a lot of those systems are incredibly contrived. Instance portals are a prime example of that. They are really contrived, they don't make any sense, they are there only for the purpose of practicality, and because we knew exactly what happened back in the original EverQuest when there were no instance portals. Oh yeah. Enjoy that, the equivalent of everything being a world boss. Oh, Lord. That was some competition for kills, I'll tell you that. But this does bring back memories, no doubt about that. AQ40 was probably the instance that I spent the most time in. When I got into raiding in vanilla, we did Molten Core with my really, really old guild, the first guild I was ever with. Ended up leaving them, going to another server. Got into a hardcore guild. We were doing Blackwing Lair when that first came out. Bugs galore, I might add. Worked our way through there. Went into AQ 20 and 40 when they were first available, fought our way through there, competed for Ahn'Qiraj because we were way behind Nihilum and Curse and Death and Taxes, but we were still pretty competitive. It was with a guild called Leafy, and they were, I believe, second on the server, second only to a guild you may be familiar with, The Legacy. That was on Mazrigo for the longest time. And I still remember that Ahn'Qiraj. It was 2 months worth of work for a bitch-hard boss, and the day when he went down, God, screaming on vent. And all the DKP wasted. 1000 DKP on tier 2.5 chess piece? Oh yes. I'm sorry that that's all I could get filmed today, folks, but I suppose beta is beta, and there are going to be days where it's just utterly unplayable. Hopefully they will be few and far between. That's been a look at Ahn'Qiraj, the Fallen Kingdom, as they're calling it. And I'll see you next time.